Everyone knows. Julie Andrews twirling on a green mountain. 7 children in matching outfits singing a stern captain melting at the sound of it might just be the most beloved musical in Hollywood history. But behind those rolling hills, there was a world of forbidden scenes, moments the studio fought to keep hidden forever. There was an entire act of the movie that was secretly erased before audiences ever got to see it. There were Nazi flags that a whole city refused to hang, and a director who threatened to use real footage of Hitler to force their hand. There was a 5-year-old girl who almost drowned in front of the entire crew. A helicopter that slammed Julie Andrews into the ground, again and again. And an actress who crashed through real glass during the film's most romantic dance. For decades, all of it stayed buried. Cast and crew were warned to keep their mouths shut. Fans believed the movie was pure magic. But the magic was hiding something. Today, we're opening the vault. These are the forbidden scenes from the moments no one was supposed to talk about. And it all begins in the one country that refused to love the movie. Austria. In 1965, took over the planet. It dethroned and became the highest-grossing film of all time, nearly $286 million worldwide. That was real money, earned on 1960s ticket prices. The film sold roughly 283 million tickets. Let that sink in. Almost 1 out of every 12 people alive on Earth went to see it. People who didn't speak a word of English were humming villages without electricity recognized there was no internet, no viral marketing, no streaming. Just word of mouth and families returning for a second, third, even 10th screening. It was a global phenomenon, except in one place. Austria. The country where the story was born gave its own movie the coldest shoulder in history. In Salzburg, the very city where the film was shot, ran for just 3 days. 3 days. Locals walked out saying it wasn't authentic. The costumes were wrong. The traditional Austrian folk songs had been replaced with American Broadway tunes. And Austrians had grown up with their own version of the story, the 1956 German films about the Trapp family, which they considered the true tale. Hollywood's version felt like an outsider looking in. But there was a deeper reason the country squirmed. The movie forced Austria to face something it didn't want to remember. And to film that one painful scene, the studio needed something the city refused to give. Nazi flags. You know the moment. The Von Trapp family performs at the festival, and Captain Von Trapp looks up to see the swastika banner hanging over Salzburg. He rips it apart, right in front of the crowd. It's one of the most electric scenes in cinema history. But to film it, the studio needed real swastika banners draped over Salzburg's historic buildings. And the city's officials said no. Absolutely not. Here's the catch. Austria had lived through the Second World War. Only 20 years had passed. Salzburg was not about to decorate its beautiful streets with Nazi flags for a Hollywood musical. So director Robert Wise played his final card. He threatened to use real archival newsreel footage, actual footage of Hitler being welcomed by cheering crowds in the streets of Salzburg. That was far worse. The officials caved. But they set strict conditions. The banners had to come down the instant each shot finished. And one thing stayed banned forever: no cheering crowds. Not even one. The film sketch artist later revealed the crew was told to take the flags down as soon as the shot was over. Wise said they made their point anyway. But here's what nobody knew at the time. The escape scene the whole world remembers had an even darker version, and in one country, an executive simply erased it. This is one of the most forbidden scenes of all. When was released overseas, the Munich branch manager of 20th Century Fox made a decision that should have ended his career. He approved an unauthorized cut. He removed the entire third act of the movie. Not a few minutes here and there, the whole final section of the film, everything after the wedding sequence. That means the scenes of Salzburg after the Nazi takeover. The occupation. The desperate escape over the mountains. All gone. Imagine walking into a German cinema in the 1960s. You watch Maria marry the captain. The screen goes black. The movie just ends. That's what some German audiences actually experienced. Why would he do it? Because the Nazi content made him nervous. Germany was still healing, or rather, still hiding, from the war, and a film showing an Austrian family fleeing Hitler's occupation cut too close to the bone. When the American studio found out, they slammed the brakes. The full version was restored and order returned. But pause for a second. The most famous escape in movie history was, for a moment, considered too dangerous to show in the country where it actually happened. And Germany wasn't the only nation holding scissors. In France, the censors were waiting too, and they aimed at the songs. In France, opened missing two of its most powerful musical moments. The scene where the nuns sing about Maria, cut. And the soaring anthem, cut. French audiences never heard the song that lifts the entire film's spirit. It was the first American film to be fully dubbed in another language, and somewhere in that process, sacred scenes disappeared. Meanwhile, Americans were being shortchanged too. 4 years, when the movie aired on NBC, it was butchered to fit a 3-hour time slot. The network chopped out about 30 minutes of footage. 30 minutes! Millions of families grew up watching a version where scenes simply vanished without explanation. Nobody told them anything. The film just jumped from one moment to the next. And before all that, even the script was bleeding songs. 2 numbers, and were cut before filming began. They belonged to the Baroness and Max, the characters you love to dislike. Erased. Which means the film you know today is not the film that was written. It's a survivor. A movie that lost songs, scenes, and an entire act before it ever reached your screen. But the strangest cuts of all were even quieter. Because some scenes were fully written, fully rehearsed, and then vanished without a trace. The version you'll never see. There's a version of you we'll never see. In it, the famous sequence takes the children through a giant hedge maze in the garden. Imagine 7 kids and a young nun chasing each other through green walls taller than their heads, singing their hearts out. It was written. It was planned. And then it was quietly cut from the film. There was also a gentle scene between Liesel and Rolf at the town fountains, a quiet moment for the young lovers that would have made their romance feel real. Deleted. And a street scene with Maria, Liesel, and Rolf together. Gone. Even some of the movie's greatest songs almost didn't make it. The Broadway show had a love duet called The Film Threw It Away and replaced it with a brand new song, and Maria received an entirely new solo which never existed on stage. Richard Rodgers wrote it specially for the film. But here's the heartbreak hiding in those songs. The man who wrote the lyrics for everything else, Oscar Hammerstein, had died in 1960. So Richard Rodgers, for the first time in decades, wrote both the music and the words alone. And out of that grief came 2 of the most beautiful new songs in the movie. But the mountains weren't done testing this production. The next disaster came from the director's chair itself. Before Robert Wise took over, a legendary director was supposed to lead this film. William Wyler, the man behind, was the first choice. He'd even quit his seat on the Fox board to avoid a conflict of interest. That's how serious the project looked. But Wyler had doubts from day one. He flew to New York to see the Broadway musical, and he hated it. He found the songs clumsy. The story didn't feel natural to him. He was also losing his hearing, not the best condition for directing a movie about music. For 2 weeks, screenwriter Ernest Lehman begged him. Finally, Wyler relented and agreed to direct. But his heart was never in it. He kept quietly looking for a way out. Then, fate handed him one. Fox offered him a dark, psychological thriller based on a John Fowles novel. Wyler read it and knew instantly, this was his kind of film. He went to the Xanax, the family running the studio, and asked to be released from his contract. The official story given to the press? Scheduling conflicts. That was the lie everyone repeated. The truth. Wyler ran. He sprinted away from the Vaughn traps and never looked back. The door swung open for Robert Wise, who stepped in and made history. But even Wise, one of Hollywood's greatest directors, couldn't control the weather. Salzburg was about to fight back. Salzburg looked like a fairy tale. Rolling hills. Perfect meadows. Picture postcard castles. It was the ideal setting for a musical. But behind the beauty was a nightmare. The outdoor scenes were supposed to wrap in 6 weeks. They took 11. 1964 turned out to be one of the wettest years on record in the region, and the rain fell like it had a personal grudge against the crew. 250 cast and crew members sat around in soaking clothes, burning money every single day. Hotels. Repairs. Extra meals. Rising wages. The budget, $8.2 million, already massive for the mid-60s, started inflating fast. And here was the real problem. Fox was still bleeding from the colossal flop that went $15 million over budget and nearly destroyed the studio. When they'd bought the rights to this cheerful little musical, everyone thought they were insane. And now it was turning into Little Brother. One studio insider whispered the unthinkable, "This movie might be the end of us." But the rain wasn't the only danger hiding in Salzburg. The scariest moment of the entire shoot didn't come from the sky. It came from the water. The boat scene. You remember it. The children tip over, everyone splashes into the lake, and it's charming, chaotic fun. But behind the cameras, it was terrifying. 5-year-old Kim Carruth, who played Little Gretel, couldn't swim. Everyone on set knew it. So the plan was simple. When the boat flipped, Julie Andrews would fall toward the girl and grab her instantly. The countdown came. The boat flipped over. And everything went wrong. Julie fell backward, away from Gretel. The little girl slipped under the water. Once. Twice. Crew members froze in horror. Finally, another actor dove in and pulled her out just in time. Kim was sick afterward. She had swallowed so much lake water that she was vomiting. And for years after, she was terrified of swimming. Julie Andrews herself later called it one of the scariest moments of her career. When you watch that scene today, it looks like pure joy. You would never guess a child almost drowned right there on camera. And this wasn't the only moment of danger. The film's most magical image, the shot that opens the entire movie, was secretly one of the most dangerous things Julie Andrews ever did. That opening shot. Julie Andrews, arms wide open, twirling through a green alpine meadow while the camera soars high above her. It looks like heaven on earth. The reality. It was closer to a battlefield. To capture the shot, a helicopter had to fly just 20 feet above her head. Every time it circled back around, the wind from the rotor blades slammed her flat into the grass. Over and over. At least 6 or 7 times. And every time, she had to get up, brush off the dirt, fix her smile, and do it again like it was the most natural thing in the world. She later joked that she was almost launched into Austria. The production team treated the scene like a miracle every time they got it in the can. But the audience never saw the bruises. That's the thing about the harder it looked on screen, the harder the reality was behind it. And while Julie was being knocked around by a helicopter, another actress on the same set was about to crash through something far more dangerous, actual glass. Meet Charmian Carr. She played Liesel, the oldest Von Trapp daughter, the one who falls in love with the telegram boy during a thunderstorm. Here's the twist nobody knew. Charmian was 21 years old. Playing 16. And she beat out some serious competition to get the role. A young Mia Farrow auditioned 3 times. The casting notes said it bluntly, sweet, but no spark. Not enough energy. Can't really dance. Farrow was out. A young Kurt Russell also tried out for the part of Friedrich. And Patty Duke and Terry Garr threw their names in the hat too. But the casting team chose mostly unknowns, kids with the perfect faces and voices. And here's where the danger comes in. During the gazebo dance scene, Charmian had to leap across the benches. Her shoes had no grip. She lost control and crashed straight through one of the gazebo's real glass panes. Her ankle was cut badly enough to need bandaging. When she went back to finish the scene, the bandage was hidden under her costume while they shot close-ups. Every time you watch, you're watching a girl with a freshly injured ankle hiding the pain. And the most remarkable part? Charmian and the other children stayed close for the rest of their lives, a real family, forged through real chaos. But the deepest secret of all was hiding in plain sight, inside the captain himself. Christopher Plummer was a classically trained actor with serious taste. And he believed was beneath him. Way beneath him. Behind the scenes, he joked he worked on it while being 3 sheets to the wind. He said the city of Salzburg felt like a prison of sentimentality. When the famous scene was filmed, the one where the captain sings with tears in his eyes, Plummer later admitted he'd been drinking heavily that day. And here's another secret fans still don't know, that beautiful singing voice? It wasn't entirely his. For the big vocal moments, a professional singer named Bill Lee stepped in, the same voice heard in Disney classics. Plummer's spoken lines stayed his own, but the soaring notes went to Lee. And Plummer was furious about it. The casting search had tested Sean Connery, James Bond himself, and Yul Brynner before Plummer got the call. But here's the strangest part of all. When the real Maria Von Trapp visited the set, she looked at Christopher Plummer and told him he